All right, Hans, we are live. Ronin Radio is back. I'm Michael Skye. Got Hans Comyn joining me from Medellin, Colombia. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya.
No,
And
from Machelen aan de Leie in Belgium. I'm back at my room where I haven't slept in 30 years.
all right, going back into the womb is Hans Comyn. Actually, we're going to talk about, in a lot of ways today, many guys do not want to leave the womb, do not want to head out into the cold and brutal world and take on a great level of responsibility. And for guys watching, you might find yourself on any extreme version of that, from a guy who still lives at home with his mama, and is avoiding responsibility and is getting later in his years, to a man who maybe is taking on responsibility, but there are ways in which he's not fully stepped into his power, ways in which he is using responsibility, ways in which he doesn't yet have the sense of calling or purpose or courage to step out into greater responsibility.
What responsibility are you
yeah,
talking about,
Hans,
Michael?
really responsibility in general. Responsibility from, there's degrees of taking on responsibility, right? On the one hand, you can be living at home with your mama and take responsibility for cleaning your room every day, and that's all the responsibility you take. On maybe a more extreme level, you take a responsibility for the future of humanity, and you're giving everything and holding yourself responsible for how close humanity is coming to the nuclear apocalypse. And yeah, you carry that weight on your shoulders. I'm not saying that everyone should do that, but the problem that we have now today is, well, at least I view it as a problem, and I don't know if many guys would define it as a problem. Um, well, okay, maybe they would. They might define it this way: I haven't yet found my purpose. I haven't yet found my calling, um, and I'm not sure I'm ready yet for whatever it is that they really want to do. And to me, and then to go around looking for their purpose, looking for their calling, it's like the dog running in circles trying to chase its tail, because a man born into any kind of family or community, especially where survival is at stake, you know, he's going to have a purpose. He's going to have a calling. He's going to have a role. He's going to be honored for fulfilling that role. He's going to have meaning every moment of his existence. And so this modern, it's this modern world that we have the luxury of looking for my purpose, but also the luxury of just being all about me and my happiness. And so I want to talk about how we get into this mess and a way
Yeah, you
out,
say it's a
which I'm
luxury.
calling awakening your ancestral father from the dead.
You're saying it's a luxury, but maybe it's at the same time a tragedy, because we're not born into that community. We're not born into a purpose, We got men without it and looking for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely a tragedy. And but if a man has never experienced something that would make his life feel completely better or beautiful, powerful, if he's never experienced it in the first place, he often doesn't know what's missing. And so he might define it as, "Oh, I don't yet know my purpose. You know, I don't yet know what I want in life." And he's defining the problem this way. Whereas his ancestors might look at it and say, "Man, like, where's your family? Where's your tribe? Where's your people? Like, what's going on? Like, what is this strange world you're living in,
Right,
where you're
right.
navel gazing all day?" And yeah, so I think a lot of times guys get caught in this trap of looking for their purpose, but because they don't have a people or a role of honor for their people, finding more responsibility in a way is not something they really want to find. Like they can look for it, but they kind of hope they don't find it, you know? Like
Yes.
responsibility without honor is a burden. It's just suffering, you know? So, I mean, men will get up and fight all day long for their newborn daughter and her survival and her well-being. They'll take on everything. They'll chop a leg of their own to be there for her, you know. But why would I want to do that if I don't have someone to do it for? You know, if I don't have my newborn daughter at home, for example, to make those sacrifices for. And so, yeah, this meaninglessness is like a self-perpetuating cycle that we don't, in a way, we want to look for meaning, but we don't. Does that make sense?
Well, it's almost like it's a catch-22 in which, to take on responsibility is your saving grace, but to take on responsibility is tough, and it's almost as if that it needs to be given to you. It needs to be passed down. It needs to come from someone else almost, because you can't, you wouldn't possibly, you wouldn't choose for it. It seems like the whole idea of like, it's painful and you don't want to do it, and you need the other to see you through it, to push you through it, to call you forth in it, because and it's a tragedy in the sense that we don't have it, like, if you if I'm going off on a tangent here, but you call me back, but it's like, if you look at rites of passage, they're tough and they're painful, and if it wasn't for community, you wouldn't choose it, like, you got to be almost forced in it, and that's a liberty we don't have.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do we escape this trap of just chasing our own tails? How do we
Hmm.
um, become the men that we always want to be? And so, yeah, it's an epic challenge. And Hans, you and I have talked about growth and transformation before. Growth is what we tend to do individually. Transformation is something that tends to happen with the other, specifically with someone who is going to facilitate that transformation. And this could be the elders dragging the teen boy out into the wilderness for the rite of
Hmm.
passage that he resists and that his mother resists. Um, so yeah, and even in choosing a coach or a mentor, a lot of guys will want to choose one that's not gonna scare them, that's not gonna have them confront what they might be terrified of, and that's transformation. Because transformation means going from what you are now to something else, and it implies that the guy that I am now is not going to be in control of the guy that I'm going to become, and so it can be terrifying in a way.
Yes.
And but yet it could be the one thing that saves us. So it's like, how do we escape that trap, and how do we transform into the man that we would really want to be?
Yes.
So I titled
Well,
this broadcast "Awakening Your Ancestral Father from the Dead." Ancestral father referring to the man you could be based on the DNA that has been passed down to you And there are men who are your ancestors, who have lived before as great, masculine, powerful warriors and stood upon this earth, and they have passed on that potential in the form of your DNA, and you can awaken that potential. You can awaken the ancestral father within, or what Jordan Peterson calls rescue your father from the underworld. But what's happened, Hans, is we've closed off that pathway and possibility by resentfully judging our fathers and or forefathers. And as we do this, we cannot receive the gifts of the Father. Taking on, becoming who our fathers were feels like, why would I want to do that? Because I resent that motherfucker. So this is part of the trap. And as you know, you and I are on an honor quest right now with a group of men, going from resentfully judging the father to profoundly honoring the father. It's not really about their father as much as the father within. And so you go from repelling the masculine or aspects of the masculine within to having it call to you. And we do this with honor work.
That's a big leap there. I'm just imagining people listening to us, because I think it's a very powerful insight that and I'm rephrasing it, that our next level leadership is inhibited by the judgments we have of our father. That as a man, the way you judge your father, forefather, father figures, stands in the way of next level leadership, stands in the way of next level responsibility, because you don't want to be like that, and you see your father who was absent or neglectful, or even abusive, and you don't want to be like that. And when doing that, you disregard or you bypass the gifts that may be in just having a lineage, just being connected through your father to everything that came before you.
It's like because your father failed you in some specific ways, your mind has just written him off altogether. You are standing above your father, looking down on him in judgment for ways that you say he failed you. And it's not in distinguishing the failures and saying, okay, I do not want to repeat those mistakes. You can honor your father and judge his actions. But what happens is our psyches, and it's kind of an early form of survival and a coping mechanism and self-protection, is this kind of reflexive judgment. And so when we do this as children, and as teenagers, it can actually help us to survive. But survive in a role where we're not responsible. Survive in a role where others are powerful, others have choice, others are responsible. So, for example, the child can whine and cry, and then the parent can see, okay, this human is vulnerable, they need my help, let me go and help them. The teenager can, resentfully judge and bitch and whatever, and basically accuse the parent of not doing their job, which is to be a parent. And then the parent can go and help them survive, right? But once we are powerful and out on our own, all this resentful judgment does is lock us into this earlier survival strategy, which uh, inhibits our incredibly inhibits our full development as men.
So you're saying that in a way, the judgments we have of our fathers is keeping us like boys, is keeping us in our adolescent phase, is impeding us from
Or it
growing
could be
up.
child phase, right? Child or adolescent phase. Mostly it's adolescent phase, but it's kind of there are. I was talking through this with someone today, and it occurs to me that some guys will side more with the mother, right, and judge the father. And these are more like the nice guys. They might be the mama's boys. They're the good guys. They want to be viewed as compassionate, and they want the approval of the mother. And the other ones judge more the mother or the feminine attributes, and they want the respect of the father. They want the respect of other men. So they want to be courageous. To get approval, you're compassionate. To get the mother's approval, to get father's respect, you got to be courageous. And so you can see men will shape their identity and their personality more based on the parent that they're judging more. And but this then gives them, it kind of locks in certain weaknesses in their identity, in their form, in their ego, and how they see themselves and how they approach the world. That guarantees certain problems for their future relationships, for whatever they're up to in life. And so it is very important, in the Bible, one of the 10 commandments is honor thy father and thy mother. And it is very, the honor work with both parents is very important. And for other kind of key authority figures can be very powerful and important. And one of the things that we do, Hans, is we'll take, for example, our resentful judgment of our father, and we will be implicitly judging that part of ourself, that more masculine part of ourself, or we will be judging that in other men. And yeah, anyway, I'm going on a bit of a monologue here. So are you frozen or are you reading something? Honda's image and voice looks frozen here. So yeah, until Hans gets back, how do we break this cycle as men? How do we liberate ourselves from this trap? This is the epic challenge that many men today find themselves with, and burdened by, trapped in, and not having a way out. Looks like Hans has just gotten trapped, perhaps in the world of his own self-judgments. There he is. He's making his return. He's almost back.
I'm back.
There he is. He has rescued his ancestral self from the underworld.
Yes.
Also, I don't know where you left off, but you can see a lot of men.
Yeah,
today,
depending on the judgment we have of father or mother, we tend to take on a different role.
Yeah, and you can see men who you might look at them on a surface level, and they might be very successful. They might look very confident, bold, but inside they're still plagued by this sense that I don't feel man enough yet. I don't fully feel like a man among men. And this was something that was with me into my 30s to some extent. No matter how much I had proved myself in ways. And it's a very real phenomenon. And then there's other men who have more rejected the masculine, and they're really being good guys, but also plagued with this sense that they don't fully feel like a man among men, and that they are man enough. And this comes all the way back to lack of initiation into adulthood, into an adult role of honor for your people as a man. So, yeah, this is the great tragedy, and this is what we must rescue ourselves from.
It is in a way. It's a super epic, a super epic hero's journey, but unlike any other in history, it's like it seems like we got an opportunity to create whatever we want, but at the same time, we have no one to initiate us. We have no one to help us. We have no one to, or we have less people to guide us. We have no rituals that we can, copy or and so it's more epic than ever, maybe even, that journey.
And it's one thing, we've talked about how this is a great challenge for the individual guy, but it's also a challenge for his family or potential family, for his children, for his community. The fact that men are becoming emasculated, and by that I'm primarily referring to the denial of, or the lack of, or the removal of roles of honor for men today. Either those are given away to women, or men are now being shamed for stepping into certain roles, or men are being viewed as oppressors for occupying those roles. And in many ways, the respect and honor for men in roles of great sacrifice for their people are no more. And men are saying, yeah, well, okay, if you're not, if there's no honor for me in this, why am I going to take on that responsibility, right? Am I going to carry the extra heavy load? And so,
so what can an individual do? Imagine an individual, a man who's seeing all this, is aware of all this, hears the truth of all that, feels it, like, what is he to do?
I would say, one, he should recognize that probably no one is coming back for him. The elders are not coming. His dad, doesn't matter how much he judges his dad, his dad's not coming back for him. And it's tragic in a way, and there might be some grieving in recognizing that. But on the other side of the grieving, you're left with, okay, if they're not coming back for me, who am I going to be for me? Maybe it's up to me. Again, that's sad and it's tragic, but
yes,
that tragedy can be turned into a great hero's journey.
Yeah, it speaks to the responsibility that must be taken on, because in the hope that someone is coming for us, or I would even say in the judgment, I've seen this I've seen this with guys, in the judgment of their father, in the judgment of God, in the judgment of the father figure, connected with it is a kind of like a hope, or still like an expectation, that they will come and save them, that they will step up, do what's right, and
Yeah.
in lockstep with that means the time I spent expecting that, I don't have to do anything, the time
Yeah.
spent in expecting that, judging, is in a way also an avoidance of one's own responsibility to do it, because I'm waiting for, and I'm judging, I'm doing something, I'm judging my father for it, I'm telling him how he should do it, I'm working on this, when in reality, it's an avoidance of that responsibility. And so I do think what you just said, that the acknowledgement and the clear knowledge that no one is coming back for you is really a great first step to, learn to take that responsibility. I think it's fantastic.
And yeah, and that judgment and resentment are no way to that happening. You cannot judge God into coming back for you. You cannot judge your father into coming back for you. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And what's going to happen one of the other things that's happening there, Hans, psychologically, is you can keep failing in life and then blaming your father or God or whoever it is you're blaming. Whereas if you realize it's all you might have to carry the guilt that you've been passing that off to someone else your whole life up until now. And that's a heavy thing to take on. That's a heavy thing to admit to yourself, that you've done that to yourself, that you put yourself to sleep in a way.
Yes.
So
yes.
Also what is to realize is that you might be reaching out to mentors, to other men, to elders, looking for wisdom, looking for mentorship. But you are unconsciously repelling great men from showing up in your life and staying. Through your resentment, you show up as a great risk. Like the guy can tell it's only a number of days until this guy blames me for his situation, makes me the bad guy for even coming and showing up. And he's like, he has too much self-respect for that. So these guys are also repelling the men that could transform their lives. So it's a great challenge.
How are they doing that?
Worthy of a great hero. How are they doing what?
How are they repelling? And I have a next question also, like a man like that, would he recognize it as you're talking right now? But how are they repelling?
Okay, one, the lack of honoring, and two, the way of resentment and denial of responsibility. So one, they're not attracting because they're not honoring. And
Yes.
two, someone can just sense that you judge them. And so, Hans, back in 2007, there was a woman that attended my Vision Force boot camp. She was a very well-connected woman in the Austin eco world. And you met her some years later, but she was like a hyper connector. She'd been, I think she went to Harvard, and she was like just brilliant, and she was very well connected to cutting edge leaders. And they were mostly on the left, mostly in the, the green and democratic circles. And she took me around to these communities because she knew all the leaders. And just walking in, I felt judged in these communities, most of them. Just walking in, like as a man with his head held high and his shoulders back, I could feel the judgment. Versus feeling welcome in other circles, like just who I was as a man before they knew anything about me. I was not welcome. I was repelled. And so, whatever judgments, like someone that has judgments of their father or a masculine man and things like this, you might not be saying it out loud, but you are repelling men like that showing up in your life and staying.
It shows up in for me, and I'm thinking very, very specific situations. For me, it shows up in what a man like that would call a critical attitude. You know, let's see, let's see what you can do for me. Like this passive receiving critical mind instead of a committed all in, I'm here with you attitude, you know. And
Like you have to pass the test that his father failed.
Yeah, it's like customer mentality, you know, customer mentality, consumer mentality. And
yeah, it's like,
yeah, I recognize
remember the guy is standing looking down on his father, right? Looking down on his elders, looking down on the father figure. And so when you show up, he's also looking down on you, right? He's standing in judgment of you. He's given himself a comfortable kind of catbird seat where he gets to look down on everyone. And psychologically, this is his comfort. This is a psychological comfort, and obviously some arrogance, right? And he's going to test you as the mentor or potential mentor, as if he's in any position to know who is a great mentor, because he has not walked the path before. You've walked the path. He has not walked the path. So it's very arrogant for him to stand in judgment.
Yes. Or even be critical, you know.
Yeah. So
my next question is, a man like that, do you expect that if he's listening and he's continued to listen to what you just said today, does he recognize it? Or has he by now switched off the broadcast because he can't take it? Or has he categorized it? Because we do want to find a way to speak to that guy.
Yes. Yeah, I think it depends on the individual guy and maybe how much pain he's in, how much he's ready to look at himself. Yeah, there are a number of different factors there, for the individual man. But yeah, it's one of the reasons we need elders is because these boys, these men, they do need elders to come back for them. They need someone to stay and to break the mold. That's the reality. That's the thing that might do the biggest thing is for someone to come in that fatherly role, stand up for them, also confront them, and also stay with them. Like that would be the miracle that many of these guys could change their life. However, the reality is there are very few elders out there, and they can't expect that they'll ever come, and they don't have a right to expect that from any particular man either. And so they might have to take on being that elder for themselves, being that father figure for themselves, and staying the course. And this is part of what I'm creating with the academy for these Ronin Hans, which is going to take a longer term commitment and also the accountability of warrior brothers, to stay the course, go all the way to the finish line, until their life is reshaped, their identity is transformed, and they have honor as their prized and sacred place to come home to and source of power.
Wow, yes. I'm just checking in with my own calling to be that for someone, and I can instantly see how tragic the situation is, because that also is a tough role, to be that for someone. Like I'm thinking of
Yeah.
specific guys, and you know, and like you say, they repel, and then to decide to stay with them, instead of all the other things I could be doing. Yes, it's a tragic situation, man. Because I there's no strong pull there for me.
Yeah. We talked about these men not wanting to take on more responsibility because there's no honor in it, that they then present this same situation for would-be elders, potential elders to enter their life, because they are not honoring of elders. And so because of this, elders don't want to take on the responsibility of them in their life, right?
Yeah.
So everything begins to change, like the North and South Pole changing, when honor is now the thing that your life revolves around and the thing that you come home to.
Yes. So this is my practical advice. If you here's a practical thing you can do. If you feel like in your life you had no your father was absent, God did it all wrong, you got no elders, the first step seems to be to stop complaining about that, to stop judging God, your father, for it, and to start honoring those same people that you're judging. And by honoring, calling forth their elderhood, calling forth their father role, calling forth, their role they can play in your life. And wow, yes, that seems like, unless you got the tools, and you do, Michael, unless you got the tools, that seems like it's like the opposite of what what you've been doing,
Yeah. It's not obvious, and it's not easy to just figure out on your own. And I was lucky to have been gifted a lot of that inside of the community I grew up in, just like steeped in honor and honoring and that work.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to start there, Hans. It could start somewhere else. It could start by getting to know honor, getting a relationship with honor inside of your heart, inside of your spirit. There are different pathways, I think, different
Well,
journeys.
it could start by doing the honor work. It could start by joining the honor quest. It could start by doing the academy. So if only I knew someone who could set that up.
I am planning to announce another honor quest beginning of May, around May 6th. So if anyone listening, this calls to you, reach out to me.
Yes.
Reach out. All right.
Reach out to me, reach out to us.
Yes. All right, Hans, we're back. We intend to be back on Thursday. We're now we're mounting a comeback of Ronin Radio here, figuring out the schedule, but we're looking at Mondays and Wednesdays for a live broadcast. And see you guys then.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Hans.
Oh, sorry, Monday and Thursday.
Monday and Thursday, yeah. Is that not what I said? I said Monday and Wednesday.
We have the recording. We can look back. Yes.
Okay.
Wednesday and Thursday. See you on Thursday, gentlemen. Thank you, Michael.